Hello everyone, Manathrall here, and welcome to a Suggestion Saturday video. Now today's is going to be a little bit different because first I want to give a little bit of an announcement of the player power. There is currently a vote going on for 3 different skilling pets, and I'll actually go through it and I'll show you what they are. Okay, so the final 2 are Sheldon by Rivellus and Wallace by Janvari. Sorry if I butchered these names, but sorry. There's still 3 days and 7 hours to go, and keep in mind these are the final 2 concepts. These are not exactly how they'll look, but concepts. Now, see, for me, as comical as that is, I have to go with Wallace, because for me, it's a pet. Okay, now we're going on to the strength skill pet. There's actually a total of 5. There's Kengali, there's Manuel, there is Haltoro, there is Barry, and there is Rollo. Now, they are all very interesting, but I think for me personally, I gotta go with Manuel because he looks different. He fits a lot with the RuneScape. Looks like it's between Haltoro and Kengali. So it's between those 2. It looks like. Poor Rollo. It's a decent concept. Don't get me wrong. It's a decent concept. It's just, it all depends on who you go up against. And the summoning skill pet, it's up between 5 again. You got Sanfen by Shuri, which is kind of like a spirit wolf kind of thing. You have Spirit by Shuri, which looks a lot like a mix of a yak and something else. Grayson, that's pretty cool looking. You got the Spirit Puppy. And you got the Shamani. I'm gonna have to go by Spirit Puppy because it really matches in with the logo. So you guys got to see what I voted for personally. Doesn't mean you have to vote for the same thing. I mean, of course, just vote for whatever you like. That's what I'm doing. Okay, now for today's suggestion, if you guys have recently looked into the big survey for 2018, well, it's for the rest of this year and 2018 and beyond. How far beyond, I couldn't really personally tell you. But one of those questions in there had talked about reverting the combat system. And me personally, I'm an EOC fan. I'm a big time EOC fan. So for me, the problem lies... I don't know why that music's so loud. But for me, the problem with that is that EOC has not lived up to its potential yet. To me, it's still in its infantile stage. There is a lot that can be done with EOC. And the nice thing with EOC and Legacy and Old School RuneScape is that it's presenting different options for players. And keep in mind, I'm not here to debate which one is better than the other. My personal preference just happens to be EOC. I like a little bit more interaction with my combat, even though I do use Revolution. I've come to set up different strategies, but also I do certain things manually, like Thresholds, Ultimates, and even certain other abilities, like as you can see down below here, I have certain defensive and offensive abilities at the ready that I don't necessarily want to keep off my hotbar, but are not the most used skills. So I think getting, well, abilities. I think getting rid of EOC would be a very bad idea in the long term of things. And I'm actually just going to stand back, and say this from not just a personal point of view, but from a game standpoint point of view. If it gets reverted, the people that have left, you're not really going to be seeing them come back because you changed the combat system up a bunch of times. That's not how it's going to work. And I'm sorry for those who are saying, well, if it was gone, so-and-so would come back. Oh, didn't mean to drop that. And the answer is yes, some people would come back, and then you're going to have a lot of people who would leave. So you have to take the good with the bad. Just like how when EOC got released, there was some people who left because of the update, but there was a lot of people who are also came into the game because of the update. And then there's also people who came back to the game because of the EOC. I will say I am one of those people who came back to the game because of EOC. Otherwise, I'd probably still be playing primarily Elder Scrolls. But see, it's not so much like, if they get rid of it, people are going to quit. It's not one of those things. It's for the game mechanics, for the way the game should kind of develop, it's going to kind of hinder things if it doesn't keep developing forward. Yes, you want to make sure that current stuff is completed, but when you look at the grand scale of everything, and by everything I mean, like, okay, if they want to make a new boss, if they make a new boss and all it is, you got to eat a certain piece of food at a certain time, or use a certain piece of gear at the right time, and really consume up your inventory space, or pop a certain prayer at a certain time. When you go for those kind of things, the combat goes back to the way it was, and it was very, very simple. I'm sorry, I don't find it very complex when it was just point, click, watch, sit back, maybe hit a key there. That's how it was. It was a very dry experience. Now, I know some people, they loved it. They absolutely loved that style of combat. See, the problem was that combat was very AFK. And I know a lot of people love AFK. But now we have Legacy and we have EOC. So it's still the same game if you go into Legacy mode. It's just now you also have the option for some players to go for EOC. So I see absolutely no reason to revert the combat system, because you already have both versions there. And people will say, well, then all the old school players will come over and then they don't have to get rid of old school. Incorrect. The reason why I say incorrect is because when you look at old school has a lot of its own updates, a lot of its own unique stuff to it that RuneScape 3 does not have, and RuneScape 3 has a lot of things that old school doesn't have. So you have basically two very different versions of RuneScape now. And actually a lot of those old school players do not want to play on the new NXT because of all the new graphics. They like the old graphics as well as the old gameplay. It's not just about the combat system for them, which is perfectly fine. I understand you want to go for what you know and what you love and what brought you to the game. Perfectly understandable. Now, me personally, I've been playing for close to 15 years, roughly. So, now I've been playing for close to 15 years, but I haven't been a member for 15 years because, well, I was a kid. So, but so I played when it was back in '07. I was around back in '07. I was back in '05 even. I was back even before that. I was right after the discontinued holiday items just stopped. Like, it was at Easter. There was a discontinued item. I started maybe a month or two after that, and that's when I missed that cutoff point. I remember when Santa hats were still like 200K, and you could get Halloween masks. There's red, green, blue Halloween masks for like 1 mil. I was around during that time. I was around when party hats were 10 mil or less. So I understand what it means when you were playing the old versus the new. I understand it. I'm not trying to put one down and say one's superior than the other, but for this game, for RuneScape 3 and beyond, I think it's very important that they keep the evolution of combat in there. Maybe fine-tune it more, give it some more abilities, but also to keep legacy going too. Because the greatest thing about RuneScape is that it's so customizable. And to me, you can have a lot of the lore. That the lore is great. The how RuneScape is great. One of the things that's very RuneScapey too is I love the British humor. It's very, very entertaining. But and the style of it, they got to make sure they kind of keep with the style of the game. Now, evolution, it was a big jump. But for those who say, well, it was just laid onto us unfairly, to some people, I say I understand that, because there was a good chunk of people who did vote against it. But they were only looking for a certain range of players to vote for it. And if you took part in the battle or the training mechanism, which I'll show you that right now, because to learn how to use the evolution of combat, it still exists. You can still go there and you can still get the training you may or may not need. And I'll show you. It's very simple. You just go to Lumbridge. It's with, I think, Lady Deathnell. But it's right here. Right in this little area here. If you talk to, Deathnell. If you talk to Lady Deathnell and you click on Start Training, you'll slowly be introduced into EOC and understanding different abilities and its different forms. So I would have to say, evolution of combat is going to be a big deal in this game. And if they were to take it away, it probably actually would kind of hurt the game. I'm not saying it would kill the game. I'm not saying, everybody's going to leave if it comes or leaves. And I'm not going to say everybody comes back if it leaves. Because you don't know. There is always going to be people in every single game coming and going. My one other point I wanted to bring up, though, too, is that there's a lot of people who seem to think that because EOC came out, that's why, it went from like 200,000 accounts logged in daily to like 100,000. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true, too, because, yes, of course they lost some in the first initial. But before that, and people often overlook this, is shortly before that, it was probably about like a month or two before EOC was actually, I think, like a month and a half before EOC was even voted for. So the voting wasn't actually even done yet. Before that came Botany Bay. And what Botany Bay did was it went through and crushed the hell out of bots. I mean, we are talking absolute decimation of bots. And I remember, now, I know some of you guys have seen this, with me being a player moderator, for my main account, I remember seeing and actually being able to stand in the Grand Exchange and seeing a bot reporting them for macroing or botting, and seeing the claw come down. And if you guys aren't familiar, basically what happened was the claw came down like that, grabbed a hold of him, crushed him, and you seen all the robotic parts fall, and then just yanked them into the sky. They were taking the Botany Bay. They were put on a trial. Of course they were going to lose the trial because they were actually botting. The software detected that it was a bot. And then the players got to vote on how they were killed. So the bots were effectively actually destroyed. Now, there was some people who were unfairly banned, but they got their stuff back. They got their items back. They got their account back. They didn't lose anything. If they did, I apologize. But, I had no part in that. But I do apologize that had happened to you. Well, with that being said, a lot of bots are actually fairly taken. Most accounts that are accused for botting and macroing, at least now, not when Botany Bay first occurred, but because there was probably a few that got it, but now it's pretty precise. But overall, all in all, what I'm trying to get at is when Botany Bay happened, that's when the numbers really plummeted. That's when they went down by about half. Now, I can honestly say that because, that happened well before EOC and well before it was actually voted for. Now, I was all down for EOC even before it was officially voted for. I was hoping and praying it would be voted for because, me personally, it would bring me back into the game that I love. But I got so tired of the mundane, boring combat system it had. To me, it wasn't very thrilling to just stand there and watch my character go, To me, that wasn't very entertaining. But now there's abilities, and for those who aren't familiar with abilities, basically with this game, you can just think of it as if you're familiar with how it used to be with weapon special attacks, just think of each ability as a special attack for your weapon. That's all you really got to do. It has its occasional perks. So, my thought is EOC, it should stay. It's very healthy for the game. It's going to be very good for the game. Long term, it's very beneficial. If it gets reverted, it's going to get more of a damage to the community than it's actually going to help, especially at this stage in the game. Because now we are getting into more and more of a fast-paced kind of games, more in-depth kind of games, and RuneScape is not an overly fast one, but it's not an overly slow one. And if you really want to go into Legacy, you still can. So, if you guys can tell me the whole reason why you want to see EOC reverted, if you want to see EOC reverted, let me know and explain it in a detail that is not just aggression, not just anger. I would like to see good logical points. That's what Suggestion Saturdays are about. It's good logical stuff. If it makes sense. And if you guys are well, that doesn't quite work, Manathrall, really that your idea isn't quite that great for that. That's great. Just let me know, and we can kind of work it out so we can make the idea better. Because what Suggestion Saturday is all about is trying to make the game better for all. Whether it's RuneScape or other games, it's meant to make whatever game discussion is going on better. That's the whole target. So I want you guys to let me know, what you think. Do you think they should just try to work a way of getting rid of EOC? Or do you think it should stay? Because if it stays, then you have people who like EOC and people who like Legacy. And I'm sorry, but I don't think if they were to revert EOC, I'm pretty sure that does not mean Old School is going to merge with RuneScape 3. Pretty sure that's not going to happen. Because that is a completely different game. In order for it to be merged together, all the graphics would have to be dropped back down. Everything would have to drop back down, and then the skills would have to change a little bit. There'd be a lot of things that would have to change, including which items stay and which items go, which skills stay, which skills go. One of those kind of things. It's as nice as it old school is. I mean, it's not for me, but as nice as it is, it's its own game, and it needs to be able to stay its own game. But my whole thing is, RuneScape is about diversity to me, and I like seeing more and more diversity into it. That's why I like the Solomon General Store. That's why I like the cosmetic rewards they are starting to give more and more. And I like the fact that they're doing it through the Solomon Store so people can actually use them without consuming a ton of bank storage. So let me know what you guys think about EOC reversion or not. They didn't say they're definitely doing it. I hope they don't, because I really feel it would be bad for the game. Especially when it's probably easier just to keep it going instead of getting rid of it. Not to mention, it's not really hurting anything. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. Pretty much it anymore. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, later guys.